Today on the Hangout, the Raptors shut it down at the ACC, swept by the Cavs. What's next for Ibaka, Tucker, Lowry, DeRozan, Big JV, and the fans? Hangout! Basketball fans, welcome into the belly of the beast that is the Air Canada Centre, the home of the Toronto Raptors throughout what has been an amazing season of basketball. Welcome into the Hangout. I'm Keel Augustine. That's Dan Gladman. He just finished his last full night of work with the Toronto Raptors producing.
Just this season.
Just this season. Well, yeah, he'll be back next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be back. It's not permanent vacation.
No, is he opting out?
He could. Who knows? He's got choices. He's got choices.
Some people are asking me, what do you do in the offseason? I'm like, I hang out on a couch with a Keel.
Yep, we do
That
that.
doesn't sound good to say out loud.
We hang out in
That's
Vegas,
it.
too.
That's
We
all
got
we got.
Summer League coming up. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, yep, Summer League. That's always
The
good.
draft.
The draft.
Yeah,
That's Dan
a fun
Gladman.
day.
This is Will Strickland. You know him, you love him. He is the Americanadian. He's also our voice of dissent. He's our household voice of dissent, so we make sure to put him on so that, you can get some opposing views. Right, Will?
Not necessarily. I would call it the voice of reason, but that's a whole nother
I
conversation.
just call you a grumpy old man, but that's
Yeah?
what I'm going to do. And then, good old Blue Eyes.
Uh-oh.
One of the most handsome guy we've ever had on the couches.
That's not true.
Randy Urban.
That's not
my
true.
co-host on Court Surfing. How you doing, buddy?
I'm fine. You're making me uncomfortable. Let's talk some basketball.
Comfortable, baby.
I'm
All
good.
right,
Always
let's
do
jump
sit on a
into it.
couch with a Keel. There's nothing else to do now.
Let's jump into it, of course. The Toronto Raptors season has come to an end earlier than had hoped, coming off of a conference finals visit last year. They fall to the same team in very different fashion. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James from jump laid the hammer down on this Raptors team, and it did not look like they were in it at all. And then you compound that with the injury to Kyle Lowry, unavailable for the final 2 games of the series, and the disrespect put on this team by LeBron James. First off, let's just focus on this series before we get into the bigger picture things. Dan Gladman, what happened here? Did the Raptors regress? What went wrong that it seemed like they never stood a chance when last year the same group did a better job?
I mean, it's a fair question. I have 2 parts to the answer. Number one is personnel. The Cavaliers have a superior roster in terms of talent, and that's not an insult to the Raptors. The Cavs have better talent than 28 other teams in the NBA.
And LeBron was still complaining about the amount of talent they had.
Well, because he wanted more and more, and it did work for him. They got Kyle Korver. They got Darren Williams. Every slot you had a guy who could make a 3 at a higher percentage than almost anyone on the Raptors. And that leads me to my number 2 answer to that. I felt like the Raptors and the Cavs, while they were playing the same sport, were playing a different game out there. The Raptors were working hard to take contested 2-point baskets, and the Cavs were whipping the ball around the perimeter, shooting 3s, and just the analytics of it, the percentage of it, everything favored the Cavaliers, and they execute to perfection.
Yeah, listen, we all saw LeBron go 48 or 49 points against the Pistons, score 25, 26 in a row. But the way he played against the Raptors in this series was, in
Even
my
more
mind,
dominating.
better than that. He controlled the game. So they ran into a buzzsaw named LeBron. And maybe,
I like that one.
Maybe it wasn't. It's not a step forward, as Patrick Patterson said, but I wouldn't call it a step back. I would just say they.
the Raptors?
Yeah.
Let's think about this for a second. Do you think that the Raptors jumped the line last year by going from getting swept by Washington to going to the Eastern Conference Finals, setting up unfair expectations of this team this year?
This was pretty much the Eastern Conference Finals, though. They just happened around earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm saying that
These are the 2 best teams. I think
competed.
Toronto, if they face Washington or Boston, they beat both of those teams.
Got
So
to agree with Randy.
They're going to beat them. I don't know if they're going to sweep them. And I think that this roster, as comprised right now, is a better roster than Toronto had last year. You got Serge Ibaka. You brought in the guy that everybody was mad at me about, saying that, hey, I'm not all that enthused about him being here, Anthony Leon Tucker Jr. And
PJ Tucker.
That's his name. PJ Tucker. That's the man's name. I'm calling him by his name.
Now, these are 2
I'm
guys.
calling him Anthony. I'm calling him Anthony.
Now, when you talk about addressing an area of a need for a team, you would say Ibaka and Tucker are what this team needed. You add those 2, and yet you don't get the
But
results.
you also need shooters. You need shooters at this point.
And they also needed Bismack Biyombo against Cleveland. Biombo was a
protector.
huge part of winning the 2 games.
I think it's more than rim protection. I had this
Well, you
conversation
still
with
talking about Bismack.
someone talked to me about this, and I think the one thing that Bismack provided was, like, I don't know, something non-linear, something.
Yeah, you can't measure it.
etherical.
There's nothing. You can't measure it.
He's our father.
Like
it was something beyond.
his
Yes.
energy was infectious, and he even had the nerve and the gall to start shooting jumpers. He was that energized.
Wagging that finger.
Yeah, so he gave a different energy to this team.
But I also
these other guys don't get.
I also think that if Ibaka came come training camp, like came at the beginning of training camp, had a whole season with his team, was able to mesh and build a sort of a stronger bond, then maybe he could have become that guy, because Ibaka is he's not maybe as vocal, but he is a guy that demands respect, demands.
I just think Ibaka could not do anything about Tristan Thompson.
No.
And that's kind of an underrated part of the story of the series. That's where Biombo was part of the advantage last year, and the lack of fear that he had of LeBron, where everyone else kind of...
2 rebounds, bro. 2 rebounds.
Well,
I don't
you
care
know
about 20-plus points.
I think
2 rebounds.
Serge Ibaka, when he first came to Oklahoma City, he played defense. He was a weak side defender, all that. As he evolved his game, as he wanted to be more of a shooter and a scorer, some of that went away. And that's natural, I guess, for some guys, because you want that spotlight, you want that glow, you want that dough that comes with that, too.
All right.
But he has to regress, and regress is a good word in this case, or go back to being what Serge Ibaka was when he came in the league in order to get that big contract, in order to stay in Toronto.
Okay, we got to go to break. I'll just quickly give my 2 cents. I really think this series was about the Cavs. The Cavs did their thing. Raps, unfortunately, undermanned. When we return, we've got DeMar DeRozan, who spoke in his end-of-season locker clean-out interview. We'll have all that and more when we return here on Canada's home for Talkin' Hoops. This is The Hangout, Toronto Raptors season in review and locker clean-out. Hangout.